four of us to go really for the price of one, but I mean, it's $1,000 a ticket.
Where are you going, Mike?
It lined up with the board goals completely.
How'd you get the companion free?
Southwest credit card.
Like a new enrollment did that?
We've had it for years, and so
Oh, you just haven't used it?
everything gets paid for with that credit card. So then you get a point.
Oh,
and
you got the points to, okay.
So there's points, and then you become eligible for that companion. So for no, that was not. Everything was super. It's like I'm not flying.
So
to
close.
Japan.
All right, I've got 7 o'clock. I'm going to call it to order, starting with the roll call. Stacy?
Here.
Larry?
Here.
Steve? Here. Jeannie? Here. Ann? Here. Fantastic. Notice of meeting?
The meeting was properly noticed.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, if everyone would please join me in standing and saying pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move right down to the spotlight on learning, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Gall.
Smooth transition. Everybody's gonna load up.
Go on down.
So I'm excited for a couple of things tonight. It's been a long time, I think, since I stood here in front of you guys and got to share some of the cool things that we're doing at Horizon. This year is especially, I think, interesting. Some of these people are brand new to us, but they're definitely functioning in new roles. We have a lot of leaders emerging in the building, and it's happening at a really good time for us. We're entering our third year of kind of COVID conditions, and it has had an impact on our kids, and it's definitely had an impact on our staff. Some of the changes that we're talking about tonight are kind of like the building blocks, and when we come back in future presentations, we'll be working on these things throughout the year, but as we come back and visit in future presentations, we'll kind of show you how we're building. No kids tonight, because we're getting to the point where we're going to have them engage in some of these really cool activities. So there's another smooth transition. Can you hit the stop? Yeah, it automatically will. There you go. Can't read that from here. But I know what it says. So this is kind of the why behind some of the big changes that we're making. Our teacher engagement data has been really inconsistent over the last couple of years. And last year, we're not blaming it on COVID, but we know that it was a tough year for our staff. The conditions to teach under were pretty strenuous, and especially near the end of the year, comments from folks, lots of conversations. We found out that it was really, again, time to make a change in kind of how we focus on the well-being of our kids and our staff. We still are working on transitioning our third grade team, and we have a handful, 6 or 8 new staff members that we add every year. We feel like over time we've kind of forgotten those people a little bit. We're trying to kind of to get them into kind of how we work as a building, and to be, put our arms around those folks just a little bit more. I can't read the last one, so I'm going to ask you just to go to the next one. So one more time. Okay. as we talk about where our students have been and what they've been going through for the last couple of years, some of our kids are coming into the building, smooth transition over from being second graders at PLE, joining us as third graders. They were able to participate in some of our events and activities that we did last year and in the fall. That wasn't the case for many kids. A lot of kids are coming from situations where they were home for almost an entire year. So that transition back has been something that we really want to focus on as well. So as excited as I said I am to be here in front of you talking, I'm even more excited to introduce the folks standing next to me. So here's Ellie Bailey, Lindsay Chandilia, and Katie Adams.
Hello. So to talk about some of the work that we're doing, we decided to have a school theme this year to kind of unite our school, but also give students a chance to express their individuality. So our theme this year is This Is Me. And Julie, could you prep next slide? You just click it up. Perfect. Thank you. So really thinking about, there is a very popular movie where this is a very popular song, but really thinking about how we can give students opportunities to share about themselves at school, and then in turn, having students learn about each other through some of the opportunities. So, our goal in this is to have students being able to express themselves, but also to allow students to connect with one another and learn about each other. So some of the things that we've been doing in our school have really been giving students the chance to identify and celebrate their identities and talk about who they are. So here are some of the great examples from around our building. If you walk into the halls, you'll see these posted on our lockers and on our bulletin boards. But really giving students the chance to think about the things that matter to them and the things that are important to them. Some activities involve celebrating each other's names, each other's interests, and just really taking the time to fill our school with these beautiful things to celebrate our students.
Hi guys, I'm Nellie Bailey. I'm working as the new school psychologist at Horizon and at ASA, servicing grades 3 through 6. And really, if you could go to the slide about new student groups. Thank you so much. So at Horizon, we've really recognized a need to support our new student groups. And we have actually over 50 new families that we are welcoming into our building this year. And with working with other staff, we found out that Asa Clark was doing these student groups, the high school was doing these groups, and we really felt like it was important for Horizon to get on board as well. So the teachers have been so wonderful to give us their time and their students. Myself, Mrs. Marks, our new counselor, and Michelle Davison, who is our school social worker. We have all been supporting students for three different sessions over 3 weeks for 30 minutes, and it has been awesome. So we spend the time getting to know them, playing games, just hanging out with them, answering any questions that they have, and helping them feel welcome at our school. So this has been a great opportunity.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Chandilia. I'm the new associate principal at Horizon. Can you go one more slide with us? One more. So one thing that we also determined was a need in our building was just kind of that idea of community building. We really wanted to focus on consistency across grade levels. We know with third grade added to our building, we really wanted to make sure that no matter what grade level students were in there, getting similar messaging. So one thing we created was a behavior committee. We decided the term behavior was just had a little negative connotation to it, so we termed it the positive pirate committee. And so what we're doing is we are focusing on one monthly activity that really brings about a positive community building activity for students, but it also kind of drives home our positive behavior expectations we have. So during the month of October, our students are taking part in a door decorating contest. The rules are pretty simple. They have to decorate their classroom door using some teamwork skills. They also have to incorporate our 3 school-wide expectations: be responsible, be respectful, and be safe. Some of our members of the district office are coming over to the judging at the end of October. So again, just some different ideas that we're coming up with, but we have our plan is to do a different monthly activity every month. And then one last thing we want to leave you with, so if we go forward. Mr. Gall kind of mentioned some things that we're going to come back and talk about. So I wanted to leave you with our last little tidbit. So if you go one more. With our positive pirate committee, we we really want to focus on that term positive and really focusing on growing some of our citizens within our building. So we currently have a behavior expectations matrix that we utilize. It's really compliance based. It's really in the hallway we want you to do this, in the cafeteria we want you to do this, but it didn't really hit home the why of why we want those things. So we really wanted to kind of tie the graduate profile indicators with that behavior matrix together so students kind of can understand how you can contribute when you're in the cafeteria, how you can compete when you're in the hallway. So this is something our positive hire committee is currently working on. Our goal is to roll this out in January when students return from their winter break, and we kind of want to take some opportunities to practice this, roll it out, work out the kinks, and then it'll be ready for our next school year. So this is something that we have to look forward to. So when we come back in February, we can share that with you guys and see how our progress is on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Open up to the board for questions. See?
So have you seen any evidence that the new family groups is creating some connections for those families outside of the school district? Has it created some friendships or family connections between the families that are all new and trying to find their way in the Pewaukee community?
Yeah, so we actually sent out a letter requesting permission. So families got to say, the overwhelming majority said that they would like their child to participate. We had kids coming from so many different experiences. Some were coming from a virtual learning opportunity. Some were coming from homeschooling opportunities. So we really feel like it's brought kids together even over a short amount of time. We can see those friendships forming really quickly. Kids will see me in the hallway, see you tomorrow. Like they're really excited to join. And I think sometimes that social emotional is just as important as the academics. And that's something we really want to hit home.
Anybody else?
I just want to thank you guys for going the extra mile again. We know that relationships is the foundation for everything. If the students feel valued and comfortable in their school, they're going to learn way more. That's just absolutely the most important building block for their success. So thank you guys for really embracing that mission of opening the door to each child's future. You're looking at them as individuals. You're celebrating them as individuals, which I think is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you for taking that initiative. Something put you on.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up is the first student board representative report, I think, of the year here. So I'll turn it over to you two.
Hey, Julie, could you maybe make that bigger? Put that to like 150% or something so we can see it better. Thank you. You go to,
Just click off that.
click on there where it says 100% down to the left.
Yeah, under the word insert.
Right here. Where it says 100%, you do that drop down.
Up on the toolbar, Julie.
Right here.
Sorry.
It's
That's
all
okay.
right.
I think that should be good.
Is that good? Better?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think around like last year, one of our board updates probably talked about our homecoming celebrations. And last year's update was more about celebrating and trying to unify the school despite not being able to do the traditional homecoming activities. So this year we were able to do those traditional activities and it was so very exciting. So we just wanted to share a little bit about how that went this year. So this year we decided to have a theme of like music, and between those themes we had the freshmen being disco, sophomores being pop, juniors being oldies, and seniors being country. And with those different themes there did come some friendly competition with decorations between the hallways. And not only that, we also had some other service activities that we had a penny wars, a change wars, which contributed to that to that competition as well. So that was a way for students to help earn points for their class, to earn a traveling trophy. And another factor in that was also a powder puff game. So we all had some activities for that, and just overall, just the return of all these traditional activities was just really fun for the school to come together and just have that school spirit that they got to experience.
Who won the powder puff?
The sophomores did.
Just rubbing it in.
So next we wanted to highlight some of the athletic achievements that our students have had at PHS. So we're past the halfway point of the fall sports season, almost closing for some sports. So we just wanted to highlight some of the achievements students have had both in the state level and some students have had the national level as well. So for mountain biking, one of our mountain bikers, Ben Dolby, has placed or is ranked first in the state so far. In tennis, we have had our first team and conference tournament championships. So this is the first year that we've been able to be Woodland Conference champions in girls tennis. In girls volleyball, we had a very special event with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society called Light the Night event, in which we honored one of our late community members, Jeff Reynolds, who had a battle with cancer, and we wanted to raise money and raise awareness for leukemia and lymphoma. Boys volleyball, we have a new boys volleyball team this year who have been performing pretty successfully with both a JV and a varsity team, and have been engaging in both conference play and tournaments throughout this fall sports season. For an Ironman Triathlons, we had one student, Zach Prestegard, who was able to complete an Ironman Triathlon, which is one of the hardest one-day sporting events to complete, with 2.4 miles of a swim, 112 miles bicycle ride, and basically a marathon. We also had our first ever Olympic U.S. National Junior Hip Hop team, which we had two members, Nicole Sheshchek and Avalon Girdman, and they competed against, I believe, 4 or 5 other countries in a virtual competition this past weekend, and they were able to take first place, taking the gold medal.
Yeah, and actually adding on to the Ironman Triathlon, Zach Prestegard is also on the cross-country team, and the weekend he ran the Ironman Triathlon, he was in cross-country like the week after, so it was really impressive seeing his endurance in that. So for our third topic of discussion, it actually really ties well with our Spotlight on Learning today. PLE also has a theme, which is Be Here, Be You, and Belong. And we had the opportunity to speak with two of the teachers, Mrs. Torbenson and Mrs. Seeger, and how they've been leading the motto about this and just the different activities that have been going on in the school. So for the 3 different components of that, they shared one aspect of it was being here and really being present. They shared really how they have been using these mental health activities to allow kids to be vulnerable, but in kid-friendly terms. So I think it's really great that they're getting kids introduced to these terms and just mental health, practicing mental health, but at a level that is appropriate for them. And some of the activities they gave, for example, were like breathing through situations, which they called like elf breaths, or just coloring and just being present in nature. So those were just some activities they engaged in that.
So next, when we talked with the 2 teachers, Mrs. Torbenson and Mrs. Seeger, they talked about the BU portion of it, which is talking about inclusion and finding people that you identify with, as our students in PLE come from different racial and economic backgrounds. So the teachers really wanted to have the students find people who they could relate to. Those 2 teachers actually co-teach in an inclusion room, so that was very important to them, trying to include all members of the classroom in all discussions. They also wanted to teach empathy, which was a big theme with the BU aspect of this, and they wanted to show how you can empathize with others, and also they wanted to lead by example, so they wanted to try to have teachers be especially empathetic to their students, so their students would do the same. Lastly, they had the belong aspect, which had to do with more of getting to know people not only from PLE but also from around the district, so they'd be more comfortable as they transition to the next school. So they had different various adults who were in their morning meetings for this aspect, and they had an Inspiration Nation. They had a kindness chain that actually went all around the school. They really wanted to have a support system or a group of adults that these students would be able to rely on and turn to. And they also wanted staff to be better connected. Not only they wanted kids to not only be connected to their own teacher, but also to other teachers in their schools and the other schools around them.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add they really took inspiration from their own kids at home and just things that they thought that they would benefit from the classroom. So it was really interesting to see how they were able to bring something that was personal to them to benefit everyone in that school. So that was really a great personal touch that they shared with us. So overall, we'd also like to salute Mrs. Torbenson and Mrs. Seeger because they really took time to really share this with us and came actually up to the high school to talk to us. So we'd like to give them a salute for doing that work as well.
Thank you. Awesome. Any questions? Did you enjoy homecoming?
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you for asking.
How was the weather?
It was actually better than past years. Normally it's been pretty windy, but it was pretty good.
It was predicted to be a thunderstorm during the parade, but it turned out to be sunny and warm and humid.
A little thunderstorm during the game.
Yeah,
Like
a little
rainstorm.
A little rain during the game. Yeah, it cleared up. It was supposed to rain all afternoon, and turned out great.
Awesome.
Great report, guys.
All right,
Thank
thank
Great
you.
report. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda is the COVID update. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Yeah, and we had a couple of parents talk to us after the last meeting, asked if we'd move this up in the rotation. You're welcome, Charla. To kind of cover this topic a little bit sooner in the agenda, so we're giving this a try. But there's not a ton of new to report, and that's good news, right? So things are very status quo. This is draft data from the start of this week, has us down for the second consecutive week in terms of cases, which would keep us in the yellow category of our model at 4.43 in terms of our 7-day average. So really all the metrics, our census tract rates are down, lowest they've been in more than 10 days. And internally our student case rates they went down quite a bit last week and they've remained down this week. So you have the draft update, which of course we always take a look at what Tuesday's data looks like before we put that out. But knock on wood, things are going pretty well right now. And again, I've been declining for the last 2 weeks. I'd be happy to take any questions you have, but we're pretty much status quo with the situation with COVID in the district.
Anybody have any questions?
Just have the eggs going in the right direction.
Yep.
Let's hope it continues.
Yep, knock on wood, it continues.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding a waiver of district requirements under State Statute 118.38. I'll have John walk us through it.
All right, thanks, Brian. So under the statute 118.38, within the statutes, the public schools are required to transport students who attend private schools that are located within 5 miles of their nearest boundary to that school. The cost of that, or if that transportation cannot be provided for less than 1.5 times the normal cost of transportation for students within the district, you can issue contracts to the parents to transport their students to the other locations. So in our district, we have roughly 100 students who are attending private schools, of which we issue contracts to in any given year. This waiver allows the board to request, earlier in the year, due to COVID, in 2021, you take the calculation of the previous year's transportation cost per pupil, and that is the amount of the contract in the subsequent year. Last year with COVID, we increased routes and we had decreased ridership. We had a lot more parents driving students to school to not be on the bus. So it raised that cost of transportation by about $113 per pupil, about a 20+% increase in that cost of transportation. This waiver request allows the board then to issue the contracts for the same amount that were in 2021, which would be representative of the 19-20 costs for the 21-22 school year only. So our contracts would remain at $470 roughly, rather than going up to $583 by requesting this waiver. And part of the requirement is that you hold this public hearing to receive input on requesting that waiver prior to taking action as a board to officially request it.
Just to be clear, these contracts we're paying somebody to not bus their kids so that they can just pay for their own travel arrangements, right?
We have about 14 schools that we transport, or that we're required to transport to under the statute. 2 of them, we provide buses, because we can fit that within our route schedule. They're close enough to be able to do that at a cost much lower than what our average cost per pupil is. So 2 of them, we transport those students. The other schools, we issue contracts to. There's just not enough kids to allocate that cost.
Steve?
John, based on ridership so far this year, where do you anticipate we are relative to our historic transportation costs?
The cost for 21-22 will be a little bit higher than what it was in 19-20. Part of it is the inflation in the cost. Part of it is we still have a lot of parents who are transporting their own students. Now, we take this count in the spring of the year. And the count is done of every student, and the requirement is for the calculation, have you ridden the bus to or from school at one point during the year for a day? So the more students that we have take the bus, if we get to spring and fewer parents are driving their students, that will raise the number against the same cost, so it'll bring that average cost down.
Thank you.
John, is there just going to be a flat fee this year? Last year, you kind of adjusted it by days because it was such a crazy year.
It's the same statutory requirement, so it's based on attendance, the days that the student attended school.
Ann, anything? Larry? Stacy?
Good.
Okay.
Move to approve the resolution requesting a waiver of school board or school district requirements with regard to transportation contract rates for the 2021-22 school year under section 118.38 of the state statutes.
Can I interject? Right. Before you guys take action, we do need to offer opportunity for public input, so we would have to accept comment from anybody who wants to comment about the waiver request. So just before the board were to move into action, and so for the audience, if you have any comment regarding, and we will have citizen comment for general topics, comes up after this, but in terms of this item on the agenda, it's specific to the waiver request that's being presented about.
Come up to the microphone.
Yep. Come on down, Charlotte.
So then kids who come to our school district, say they live in the, or 220, the open enrollment.
Open enrollment.
Do their school districts have to pay us? Or do we not offer them buses?
Yeah, this doesn't apply to open enrollment. Open enrollment transportation is wholly on the responsibility of the parent by entering that program. The only time when an open enrollment student can get onto one of our buses is at an established stop within the district boundaries, and if there's room on that bus. So we have some locations where students will be on an established route where we allow them to get on when they're open enrolled, but open enrollment transportation is a responsibility of the parents. This applies only to private school transportation.
So my question is basically, I know for a fact that there's 15 families in the Springdale Estates subdivision who currently ride the school bus. But Right Way has said that they've had to add routes for Springdale Estates.
Yeah. No, we review this every year with Right Way. They don't add routes to there. Anytime that a route might be added, it's more due to timing than it is to capacity.
Okay,
So,
that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Anyone else?
So John, you said which schools qualify for that we actually deliver?
we were able to, so parochial schools, private schools are required to have a transportation area that's designated, and it can't overlap with a private school of that same denomination, or, so the archdiocese can't have, you can't live next door to somebody who goes to another school that's in the archdiocese typically and be in the same attendance area. They can't overlap. So St. Dominic has an attendance area that is consolidated enough in our district where we're able to route a bus through there to take them to that school within our route structure. And St. Anthony has on the southwest side.
And Sela does not use this at all, right?
Okay.
I think we have some to Heritage Christian. We have some that go to there as well, so there's a few others.
So we had a motion. I don't know that I heard a second.
Second.
Thank you, Stacy. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda, as Mike was saying before, we have comments from citizens, and so far, I only have an individual card.
That's for section 13, close of business.
Oh, you, sir, are you saying that you submitted your card and you want to do it at the end of the meeting? Because there is a second.
There's a section, spot 13. after
Yes.
the word local immigration.
If you'd prefer to wait till then, that's fine. Yep, okay.
What? I have one from Larry.
That's me.
Oh, so you want to go later?
He wants to wait till the
Okay,
second.
got it. Okay, Katie?
Hi, Katie.
Hi. So I wanted to follow up to an earlier email string that I had sent to everyone here at the board. I said they know even on it. So I had reached out and asked two questions in regards to the interviews for the BOE vacancy. My first question is, when reviewing the candidates, there were a few that came up with home addresses outside of the Pewaukee district when I looked up these people. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. That's why I'm asking the question.
Mhm.
It's not my job to do this. I would expect there to be some kind of verification. I got your email, Mike.
It was verified.
Okay. So,
Oh, they
and I
all
also,
were verified.
like, criminal background and all that other stuff would also be checked.
Well, there is a candidacy form where they have to, they certify that they are electors and they provide us the address. We confirm that they have, that address is within the district boundaries. There's not a criminal background check that's completed at this stage.
Okay, well, we might wanna do that, cause if you look at one of the candidates, they have a 5-year prison sentence. So, something to consider, something to add to the list. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to make it more complicated, I was just literally as a mom, just looking at the candidates just to learn about them, see who I knew, who I didn't know.
Sure.
The second question I asked was about live streaming. We have had transparency and it's been amazing that we have this now. Everyone expects it. We're all really busy, especially with parents being offsite with kids, feeding kids. My 3 kids just came home from a swim. Like, there isn't always the opportunity to physically be here. If it's an open meeting, which it is, and also according to the state law, right, it's an open meeting, the interviews as well as the after discussion. What is the concern about airing it and recording it? Because Brian, you're the president, you've been here for 20+ years, and your response to me was somewhat disappointing and alarming. Like, I'm gonna read your response to me.
Sure thing. I'll read it to you if you want.
No, I've got it here. So, I received many responses. Everyone used my name. You just replied, it came out very offensive and a little bit stark and a little bit alarming. It's taken me, it was 6:01, it's 7:30. I'm a pretty reasonable person, but this just, well, you decide for yourself how this is. So no name. If there's a particular candidate that you do not believe resides in the district, please share your accusation. I'm not making an accusation. I said to you simply, are we verifying this? It's just a verification. That was all I was asking. And I read to you how I worded my question. The meetings when we are interviewing candidates will not be streamed. We'll be asking candidates the same questions, which I think that's great, but if other candidates can hear the questions, so the first person that goes is at a total disadvantage to the last person that goes. We will be asking all candidates the same questions. We will then be discussing the leading candidates as determined by the board. The board doesn't think it's appropriate to discuss strengths and weaknesses of individuals and broadcast what could be sensitive and uncomfortable for those that had the courage to step up and put their names forward. I agree with you, but to the Wisconsin law, it's about financial, medical, and those situations. Nothing about this is private, they're open. So what's the concern?
And it's an open meeting, so you
It
can
is.
attend, so.
But why can't we stream it?
There
What's
was
the
a
difference?
general feeling when this was discussed that we did not want to stream that. We will bring it up again under board operations and see if anybody's opinions have changed.
Thank you. I would hope in the future that as the president, you could be a little bit more professional, a little bit more balanced in your response.
All right.
Compared to your cohorts here, it was less than desirable. Thank you.
Sounds great. Kelly Belt, sorry.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi there. Just a couple things. I want to touch on, there are a lot of people who aren't here tonight because of kids too, that we've been discussing within a group of us about having the interviews open, or live stream, sorry, is what I'm looking for. A lot of people have been inquiring about it, so I guess I would like to see the board take serious consideration into that for everybody. Another topic I want to bring up that was brought up, I don't know, June, July timeframe, it's been a really long time. This policy on fair and unbiased teaching that we had brought up, I know Jennifer Murphy had brought it up, I think a couple others of us have brought it up too. I understand it hasn't been a policy committee meeting in quite some time, and the last one was canceled for the closed session. But the next policy meeting, I guess I'd like to request that that get put on the agenda and get discussed. It was a hot topic for us back then. I think movement needs to be made on that. So, and to kind of back up Katie Stafalowski also, I read Brian's email. I thought it was not the most appropriate email. I've also gotten email responses from him that I feel are less than professional. Others have been very professional on the board, and I think as a board president, especially for 26 years, it's time that he starts getting called out for some of the behavior that he has in his emails and the unprofessionalism. So I just wanted to back you up on that comment.
Can I ask what the procedure is for a new policy? How does that work? If
Oh, I still have time on my minute. I did want to ask something else. You just stated to Katie that you guys had discussed not live streaming the meetings. When did that discussion take place? Because we've all been at the school board meetings, and I don't recall ever hearing that discussion.
We had a confidential meeting with our legal counsel to understand what our requirements are for. Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to
Yeah, it was one of the items talked about there.
Stacy, you were asking?
Yeah, Stacy, so a board member can propose anything to be on a policy committee agenda for consideration. We have agendas that are approved by Jeannie as the chair that go through her. Typically they come forward, and they can come from an administrative recommendation too. Typically they come in our cycle because we have that 5-year
Right.
review process, or if legislative changes come up or other issues come up that drive that agenda. So that's how things end up on that agenda.
Okay.
Plus Jeannie can bring it up too, right? I mean,
Any board member.
Any board, he
can
said
ask-
any board member
Can ask for a policy consideration or item to be discussed to be on that agenda.
All right, we'll move on to the next item is salutes and recognitions. I'll open up to board members and see if they have anybody to salute or recognize. We already had salutes and recognitions from the student representatives, so anybody want to add to that?
Actually, I would like to salute our student representatives. I really like, because as student representatives, that you are not just concentrating on the high school, you are bringing in all of the school buildings. And I think that is really helpful for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie.
I'd like to salute, but I don't really know who it is particularly. I would guess it's the administrators in each building, that a homecoming week was a celebration throughout the entire campus. Would it be the administrators? Perhaps the advisors of the, well, no, that would just be the high school.
Yeah, I can jump in because that's what I was going to talk about, Stacy. So I would say Brian Sniff, Paul Bursai, Brent Roberts, Jeff Behrens, and then 2 teachers that in particular that put a ton of work into it would include Nadine Sevens and Maddie Flynn were 2 that should be recognized.
But then add the other buildings too, because I feel like the whole campus did a really great job of including the younger kids too.
Yeah, administration and all the building, whether it be dress-up days or those
Yep.
things, were part of that
Yep.
as well. Yep.
Anybody else? I'll open up to the admin then.
Well, I'd just like to recognize the board. Last week was Board Appreciation Week, National Board Appreciation Week, and I know we're going to have other people that are coming forward this week. That and it's great to have a community that we have so many dedicated citizens who want great things for their schools, and you guys put in an awful lot of time into this service to the community. So last week was Appreciation Week, so I want to call that out and thank all of you again for your service.
Thank Thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have minutes from the previous meeting of September 27th, some correspondence, and two generous gifts. Pewaukee football donated to the new stadium, $50,000. We have robotics received a gift of a enclosed trailer to take the robot around. So that was worth $3,500 from Shelley Longhorn and Mike Klausing. So any questions or corrections to the consent agenda?
I would just like to just add some special recognition to Pewaukee Youth Football for their substantial donation. You'll recall when we go back to turf being installed in the stadium, they also contributed to that, so it's great to have. One of the great things about school facilities is the community use that happens, and youth programs aren't technically school programs, but they're tremendous support programs. And so that's just an organization that's been, we've had a great working partnership with them to offset school costs and taxpayer costs for some of the facilities we've been able to put together. So that was a very generous donation.
All right, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed? 6-0. That brings us down to the Business Affairs Committee, who met earlier, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Yeah, we had a very detailed conversation today. I talked about some great topics I'll share with you. First of all, like always, we go through the check registers and the financials reports. Everything looks great from a check register. There were a few questions that the members of the committee had brought up that John answered effectively. All of us were satisfied with all of those items. Financial report, John noted that this is the final financial report based on our preliminary budget. By the time we have our next one, we'll have our real budget, which we'll see as a group next meeting. Then we went into conversation around Esser Funding, very complicated topic with 3 levels. For those of you who are familiar with that, John has spoken to us on a number of times. There's 3 rounds of Esser Funding that have been approved. In total, we expect as a district to be receiving something just under $3 million, or right around $3 million through the Esser programs. That a lot of the estimates around that are still to be locked down, but mid-November, John shared with us that he expects those exact funding dollars to be locked in. And the funds, some of which have been spent already back in 2020 and 2021, we spent the first round of those dollars to do work to mitigate around COVID strategies, and others have yet to be awarded to us and will help us with offsetting costs, a lot of which is dedicated to funding to help students with achievement gaps and to help students adversely affected by COVID environment the last year and a half. So a lot of funding for us that we can use to help make sure that students getting the most that they can out of our education process here, and that we help address all student learning gaps and make sure that students are prepared for success as they graduate out our doors. So the biggest, I guess, takeaway I would say is, we expect about $3 million. The funding runs through September 30th, 2024. And I think John and Danielle, who spoke to us about how we're going to use the majority of that funding to support student need, have an effective plan to address that and to apply that generous funding that we're going to receive to directly help the students of our district. Then we went into a conversation around the future debt schedule. We reviewed the debt service schedule as it exists today. John talked about the opportunities for defeasances to maximize our state aid. We've talked about that topic before as a full board, but John talked about the specifics in the next couple of years and where the defeasance opportunities lie. And also we talked about the opportunity when we adopt the budget at our next meeting to do a similar tack to what we did last year, which is to levy additional funds for debt service to take advantage of callable debt in in the future years to come. So we'll all have the opportunity to weigh in on that topic as we look at the budget next board meeting. Finally, in our meeting today, earlier we talked about, I'm missing the last topic.
The TRAN.
The short term.
Yeah, thank you. The next item that will come up for us tonight, which is the short-term borrowing, which we'll see right after this topic on our agenda, which is the $2.5 million of short-term borrowing to support cash flow for the district. And that's what I have done.
Any questions? I've got one. So this $3 million, is it we spend and then get reimbursed?
No, actually,
It's a grant?
Some of that has already been awarded to us. There is some of it that has yet to be awarded, but we'll be able to apply for it as soon as the funds are confirmed, the values of the funds are confirmed.
Okay, so we don't need to maybe short-term borrow to pay for something and then it's gonna be there for when we actually spend the money?
Yeah, John, how quickly can we actually receive the funding?
Just like most of our grant programs that we have within the district, it runs through the system through the DPI who's administering the grant, so the WISE grant system. We'll put in an application, here's our plan for how we're gonna utilize the funds. It'll be reviewed and approved to make sure it fits within the guidelines of where it is. And upon that approval, you can start the claim process.
And Brian, some of the funds will have been spent because it goes back to 2021.
Right.
So it is a reimbursement for some.
Yeah, we spend it on things like bipolar.
Plexiglass
Yeah.
and
See, the first,
disinfecting.
Yep.
yeah, the first level of funding, we talked about 3 levels. The first level of funding and the base allocation for the second tier of funding have already been processed through the WISE grant system, so we were able to claim those. They were documented as revenue that we had for the 2021 fiscal year.
Yeah, so that was about 230,000, 240,000? Yeah, that we've already claimed.
Fantastic. If there's no questions, I'll seek a motion to accept the report from the Business Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. All right, next item is the very thing that Steve talked about, the resolution for authorizing the borrowing not to exceed 2.5 million for shortfall in cash flow.
So as the board is very familiar with over the years, because of our position in the equalization aid formula, a majority of our revenue for operations comes from the tax levy. And those revenues are received primarily in January and the second half of the fiscal year. So we run into a point where we have a deficit in cash available to continue operations within the district. 12 years ago, that dollar amount was about $9 million. We have brought that down to about 2.5 to this year's borrowing amount of $2.5 million. And that gets us through January 15th when the taxes come 2 days later from the village and from the city. So we went out to bid on Friday. We had bids due at 11 o'clock in the morning. We received 3 bids on the cash flow borrowing. Interest rate on this borrowing is 0.34109% with Northland Securities. So the effective rate is 0.34109.
We all wish we could get that rate for our mortgage. I just wanted, for the audience, just to kind of be clear in case, you know, you have questions about this. Cash flow borrowing is there because of the timing of when funds come in. It is not a situation where the district's running at a deficit. It's about when the tax revenues come in, and so it bridges you until that revenue comes in. Just thought that might be helpful.
Any questions? All right, I'll need a motion.
I'll move to approve the placement of the tax and revenue anticipation note in the amount of $2.5 million dated October 20th, 2021 with Northland Securities, Inc. at a net effective interest rate of 0.34109%.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Stacy. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thanks, John.
Nice job, John. Next item, we have 2 field trip requests, and I guess Jeff is here?
Yeah, we have Jeff and Coach Burkemper here to talk about a couple of basketball trips, so.
Hello, we have a couple of trips, both the boys basketball program this year that exceed the 300-mile threshold. So by board policy, we're coming for approval to take those two trips. The first trip is the day after Thanksgiving, going down to Peoria, Illinois, to participate in the Washington Tournament of Champions. It's a high-level talent tournament. Dave can probably speak more to it. But that's the day after Thanksgiving. And the second trip is to Minneapolis North High School to participate in another tournament. Both of these are called tournaments, but they're one game. It's not a bracketed tournament, it's just one game, not multiple contests.
Just one game at each?
Yeah, one game each.
Is this a direct result of our performance at state? Is that what it's connected to?
Well, the one in Peoria is, the one in Minnesota is the border battle.
Okay.
Wisconsin and Minnesota have been doing, they go back and forth every year.
In that tournament, in that event, us, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin Lutheran, and our areas, it's all from our area that went there.
Long way to travel for one game.
It's a pretty good experience.
Team bonding.
Well, as you mentioned there about our experience at the state, this one tournament they're going to in Peoria, they're actually funding us to do that. So that's a real recognition of the quality of our basketball team.
That will not cost us a dime.
What's the compelling reason for them to pay us to come play?
It's a tournament, they started, I wanna say, maybe 10, 13 years ago. They try and bring in as many, kind of state champion, and teams that have high level talent. We have, obviously a few kids who have been receiving high major interest from college coaches, which brings interest into their event. Pros have played in their event before. I know, Tyler Hero played in it when he was a senior. So Peoria is a hotbed of basketball. They get a good, 2,000-3,000 crowds, person crowds at the games. So.
Other questions?
Way to go.
All right. You want to take them together then?
I can do it.
Okay.
I move to approve the boys basketball team to travel more than 300 miles to participate in the breakdown border battle at Minneapolis North High School on January 22nd, 2022. And I move to approve the boys basketball team travel more than 300 miles to participate in the Washington Tournament of Champions in Peoria, Illinois on November 26, 2021.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
That brings us down to personnel issues. At this time, or at least when this agenda was created, there were no resignations.
No resignations.
Okay. There are 2 employments to act upon tonight.
Yes, the first is a name that may be familiar. Deb Broadbeck, we're recommending her hire as a part-time 40% math interventionist at Pewaukee Lake and Horizon Elementary Schools. Works out really well. Deb has a lot of tremendous experience, as you know, and great training in filling this position to support, provide that extra intervention and support for our math students. So we can take any questions you have. Otherwise, I'd seek your approval for Deb's hiring in that intervention role.
Motion?
So moved to approve Deborah Broderick.
Second.
All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 6-0. All right, that's one down. Welcome back, Deborah.
All right, and then secondly, we, due to need, we've added a special education position. So we have Holly Zimmerman, who comes to us, and we're fortunate to get such a quality candidate in this time of year, 13 years of teaching experience, and a lot of specialized training. So we take any questions that you have, but I would seek your approval of Holly Zimmerman for special education teacher position at Asa Clark Middle School.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Welcome, Holly.
Danielle, how long does it take typically when we hire somebody mid-year for them to actually get on board and start performing in the role?
It really kind of depends on what their circumstances are as well. So in this case, this candidate's coming from another district, and so we wanted to be respectful of that transition out. And so it's taking 2 weeks before she'll start with us. She'll start on the 18th, so next Monday. And then over the course of, the next, I would say 4 weeks, we really try to infuse them with as much of the professional development that we need to get them on board with our systems. But it's very dependent on their role, prior experience, and sort of environment that they're walking into. In a special education setting like this one, special education is very similar across districts and stuff, and so it's really about just learning our systems, and so that's usually a pretty quick transition.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so she'll quickly, they'll divide up caseloads among teachers, and that's the issue, right, is that we have a larger population. At ASA, we've had move-ins and different things that require this kind of service, so she'll become the case manager for those IEPs and start working with those students, and should be able to, her experience will really help her to hit the ground running.
Thanks.
All right. There are no leave requests this time. That brings us down to board goals and operations. The first item is a review of upcoming activities. We know what we're doing for the next 2 nights. Tomorrow we'll start at 7, and then on Wednesday we start at 6. Next week then, there's the regional meeting. I will be out of town, but I'm glad to see everybody else is going, so that's nice. Monday, October 25th, policy is meeting, and then the regular meeting. The 8th, business affairs, and the regular meeting. And then 22nd, the week of Thanksgiving, there'll just be the regular meeting. So.
Just a correction, Brandon, that is what it said in your materials here, but on Wednesday, I believe we start at 5:30 with our first interview.
Wednesday at 5:30, I'm sorry, thank you for that.
So I guess I didn't anticipate the interest level in people being able to watch from home those interviews. I'm surprised that so many people want to. I've been through the process, so I'm surprised people want to observe it, but that's great, and I'd love to find a way we can help facilitate that if there's a way to do it. I don't know if that's possible to do at this time, or if people are comfortable doing it, but bless them if they wanna sit through that.
Certainly if that's what the board wants to do in terms of the process, we have staff like Oliver's here tonight, right? We'd have to find someone to set up and to manage the live stream, but I'm sure we can find a way to make that work if that's what the board would like to do.
I'm supportive of it if people want to watch it. I'm supportive of it. I don't know if others.
Well, let's go around and open it up. I was going to save that for last, but we can start now. Stacy, what do you feel like?
I'm fine with it. I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm uncomfortable with it being an open meeting too. I mean, it's my first one, so I just have a level of discomfort, but of course, if there's an interest and they want it streamed, I'm fine with it.
I think most of us felt that discomfort, so that's why we didn't plan on doing it. Ann?
I would agree totally with Stacy.
Uncomfortable but open?
Yep.
Larry?
Totally fine with it, too, with her.
Jeannie?
My question is, what did we tell the candidates when we set up the interviews?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know.
Julie, was there any discussion about streaming one way or the other with candidates?
No.
Okay.
I can tell you the email I got, it didn't say anything one way or the other.
Yeah, we have someone who knows firsthand right here, Jennifer.
Well,
I mean, they know it's an open meeting. I mean, that's.
Why don't we send out an email to all of them and let them know that we'll stream it, okay? They may change their mind or something.
Vote on that, or?
I don't think you need to take action on it if you have consensus.
Would you feel better
I mean,
about
if you
it?
want to, certainly don't let me.
One, if we're gonna do this, I mean, obviously, we made decisions to live stream all of our board meetings going forward. Why is this any different? So,
Well,
I would like to move that
Okay.
the interviews that will occur tomorrow night and Wednesday night will be live streamed just as a regular board meeting. So,
There's a motion on the table.
Second.
All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item, legislative agenda there, advocacy, I should say. There's a number of things that are up. A couple of them seem to be quite onerous for the workload of our administrators, posting a lot of information that like for financials, is already available. There's also cursive writing has come back up again. And then there's one on reading assessment, I guess is the best way to say
Yeah,
it.
there's a number. I mean, there's this bond referendum bill that's, there's some concerns about just, it's in terms of reporting. Certainly something that, I mean, the purpose of it is to have transparency with the community. I think the concerns have been expressed by some groups is the ability to convey clearly, because in essence, my understanding, and John, you would know it better than me, is about projecting interest costs as it relates to a referendum's total cost. And that's, again, a projection. It's not a given. And I know that then some legal analysis of that particular bill is concerned about appropriately stating that on a ballot for a bond question to the community. That's one of the things that we've read there. So that's a piece that's out in front. There is a reading bill in the Senate, and again, there's opposition to that, not in terms of supporting reading instruction, but in terms of approach. And there's different philosophies on the best ways to handle reading instruction and assessment. So those are two pieces that are out there right now. And yes, the cursive writing bill has circulated in past years, and that's out there as well. And again, generally those concerns revolve around local control, and is that something that should be mandated as an issue. So those are, I would say those are primarily the education-related bills that are in front of our state government at this time.
Brian, the other one that I see out there, I don't think it's come to where they've come up with a ruling yet, but they're talking about required civics class for high school. Do we have something like that, Danielle?
Yeah, we already have a ninth grade American government
I thought we did.
class and the comparative government class in ninth grade, so, yeah. And they have to take the citizenship test as a graduation requirement as well in the state. So that's been for the last 5 or 6 years.
I keep reading where nobody does it, and I went, I swear that we have a government class, now I have to take this.
Most schools do.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I thought. It was like 370 some out of the 420
Yeah.
school districts
Yeah.
already had it, so.
yeah, I'd be surprised to find one that doesn't, but I suppose there's a few.
Anything else? All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Larry now to walk us through the superintendent goals and Board of Education goals, so.
Jeannie pointed out that there may have been a slight typo on the headings for the dates for the superintendent goals, but they should read superintendent goals 2021 and 2022, and it was a draft from the previous meeting, 9/27/21. And the Board of Education goals, same thing, 2021, 22, draft of 9/27/2021. I did not receive any comments from Steve or from Brian or anyone else. I mean, obviously, if there was any concerns that you had with the content in terms of the superintendent goals or the board goals, specifically around the wording or anything like that, but I think as we talked through last time, specifically, we always will focus in on our strategic plan. We also want to make sure that we stay consistent with the Stay Safe to Stay Open plan and make sure that we're managing that and being kept informed in terms of that. Also, John, and we wanted to make sure that we did get updates on the Esser funds and providing clarification in terms of where those funds are being spent. We also wanted to make sure that we had information relative to our staff. I mean, as you know, our staff are very, very fundamental to the work that we do here in the Pewaukee School District. So wanting to make sure that their needs were being addressed and also helping them to work with the students who might have some additional learning interventions required as a result of the past year and a half or so with combinations of the virtual and in-person classes. Facility plan, we're hoping we're kind of in the wind down phase for that. So that kind of wrapped that up. And then our main job is obviously to make sure that we stay on top of Mike and his working relationship with us and his continued growth and development as a superintendent for the district. And then finally, we also talked a little bit about the importance of making sure that we stayed on track with somewhat of a timeline for us to potentially reapply for the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. The board goals typically align and synchronize with what we just had for the superintendent's goals. and being able to bring that information forward to us as well. And again, we would do our own self-assessment in the fall, and then hopefully if Melissa Mazaraza can work with us again and Mike to help really solidify that mid-year evaluation and also help us to focus our work as a school board in coming together to do our job. And hopefully by that time, obviously by Wednesday night, hopefully we'll have a new candidate and be able to bring that person on board and include them in the process of orientation that Stacy went through a year ago, and as Steve went through it probably 3 years ago now. 3 years ago, okay. Making sure that we have a good grounding in terms of bringing school board members on board, but also helping to address any of those issues. So, given that I haven't heard anything, I would like to move to approve.
Well, I just want to say, I know I talked to you about item C and item 3 being wordy, but I couldn't come up with better language after a couple attempts, so. Any comments from Mike?
No, I looked these over and I'm, completely comfortable with those. I think they make a lot of sense. The strategic plan's in there as it always has been. And obviously, things like the facility master plan as we are, wrapping up the referendum construction projects, those things make sense. So I think it's a good continuation of things we've been focused on.
Okay. So now make your motion.
Okay. I would move to approve the board and superintendent goals as presented.
Second.
Who got that one?
You can give it to Steve. He hasn't said much tonight.
All right. Any further comments or questions? Otherwise, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Let's see here. We're down to the board education vacancy update. I think we covered the whole streaming thing. Is there anything else to add at this moment?
I'm happy to see such widespread interest this time.
Yeah, very, very strong interest, which is great.
Nothing to add?
No, I think we have a good process, and it'll be great to hear from so many interested community members in the next 2 nights, and you guys will have a good decision to make on Wednesday.
All right. Well, then we'll move down to comments from citizens, and now it's Larry's turn.
The other Larry.
The other Larry?
Also wearing a blue shirt.
Yep.
We're gonna coordinate our shirts. My name is Larry Stick. Good evening. Happy Columbus Day. I'm president of Pewaukee since about a year ago in November. Pewaukee School District has a chance now to lead the state. I'd like to encourage you all to do so. During this session, the Wisconsin legislature passed a transparency bill. You're familiar with it, Senate Bill 373, which provides that school districts should make their operations easily available to the public through the website. According to the bill, the categories of information will be accessible through this portal, include instructional programming, instructional personnel, instructional operations, facility maintenance and operations, pupil transportation, school administration, system administration, staff development or professional development, pension and health care costs, pupil participation, open enrollment, and part-time open enrollment, also in the early college credit program, and for each category recommended under subdivision 1, the financial data that will be accessible to the public through financial information portal. Recommendations under this subdivision, the advisory committee shall consider at least all of the following for each category: the total amount of local, state, and federal funds received, for state funds received, the appropriation or program from which those funds were dispersed, costs and expenditures related to pupil enrollment, and the per pupil and per school costs. Easy agenda. Pewaukee should be a leader in transparency, not a follower, and should not hesitate to implement this idea, showing other districts how it can be done for the benefit of the district, its employees, and its taxpayers. Thank you for considering the proposal. That's it.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Can John comment on that or not?
What's that?
Can John comment to any of those things or not?
Based on the bill and what I understand of it, the steering committee that it referenced in there will be developed, and it'll talk about what information and what is the content of that transparency. And as Mike had mentioned earlier, that's one of those items. The information is available, but can it be presented in a clearer manner, and can it meet the intent of what the bill is addressing? And if we're part of the development of that, it would be great.
Thank you.
Well, I'll be real direct with you, John. So, I mean, I know you're active in the Wisconsin Association of Business or School Business Administrator type people. Okay. So are you involved in any of this activity or working with a group of people from the?
At this point, it's early.
It's too early, okay.
Yeah.
But you have the potential in terms of that group could be there and be a part of the discussion. I mean, and the reason I'm raising that is obviously just in terms of the context that, you know, if legislators are trying to put this together, but if they really don't know what they're looking at or how to present it, that's where the expertise like of your group, your professional group would be important to do that, so.
Yeah, I believe DPI is already looking at a strategy of how to develop the system and how to merge it with the systems that exist to create that transparency.
Makes sense.
All right. Last item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tina, you got it? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.